cut off, but I'm just going to start with we want to pray passionately. And what that says to me is that I want to be, and I encourage you to be, madly in love with God. Do you know what you do? What is your life like when you are madly in love? You want to talk to this person all the time. You want to be around them all the time. There's nothing that they can say that you wouldn't want to try. If they say, let's jump off this cliff, you're going to jump right off with it because you are madly in love. And when you are madly in love with God and passionate about that, you want to be around this spirit, this voice, this thing that is you, consciously aware, to let you live the great life that you're living. To do the work is exactly what St. Francis said in his prayer, St. Francis of Assisi, make me an instrument. You want to show up as love and not hatred. That's not always easy to do, believe me, particularly when you're in relationship with someone. Not always easy to do. Show up with love. Be the first to forgive, to pardon any injuries rather than giving injury. Pardon any injuries that you think you may have suffered, real or imagined. Just pardon people. We talk about this, that we are pre-pardoned. We talk about being pre-prayed up, meaning that you're already in a relationship with God so that whatever happens, you're already guided. That voice you already know that's inside of you, it's already talking to you all the time. We be pre-forgiven, meaning that whatever anybody does, you're already in the space to forgive them and let it go. When we talk about doing the hard work, it is about stepping out in faith, letting go of the doubt, because it's easy to doubt when you can't see, when you don't know what's going to happen, because that's how spirit works. You just have to trust it. You have to trust yourself, your divine knowing, and step out in faith. That's the hard work. The fifth principle in unity tells us that work is required. So my point is to see any changes that you want in your life, to live a greater life, to live the life we came to live. To see the change, you got to be the change, and you got to do the work. To see the change, you got to be the change, you got to do the work. That's just all it is. There's no other way around it, which is why we're here, to talk with you about what that work looks like, how it shows up, our experiences, and help you. You don't have to do it alone. Whatever that is, whatever's in your life. And if you're living a life, then you have some trials. You're going to have some trials. It's not all, as we talked about a couple of weeks back, it's not always unicorns and rainbows. It just is not. Hear what the 5 unity principles tell us. God is good. God is good. And because we are what? Individualized expressions, then we are inherently good ourselves. It tells us that our thoughts are creative. So whatever we're thinking, we're creating as we go. Prayer is connection. We want to be in prayer all the time. And I know growing up, I didn't understand that, because the way that we prayed when I was growing up was to be on your knees. You couldn't actually speak to God unless you were on your knees looking up. Well, I didn't understand how I was going to live my life and be on my knees all the time. It just made no sense. But what we're talking about is that since we know we are individualized expressions of the one, and because we know that we can create that and have that relationship, we can talk to God at any time, any prayer, any place. Because we meditate, we know we can hear a word. So we know what that voice sounds like. We're in the middle of a storm and we ask for help, boom, it's right there. It is right there all the time. So that is what prayer, connection, action is required. Now, the last time I talked with you, I talked about the 5 unity principles, but I also said that we as New Thought ministers, we have a few more unofficial principles that we've added because it's the truth about life. And you need to know these 3 extra principles, and we're probably going to add to it as we go through and we want to give it a name. But when you're going through the trials and tribulations, when it's related to the fires of experience, that's what I call it, the fires of experience, because as you go through, you come out on the other side knowing and having tested your own mettle, knowing what you and God can do together. So the 6th principle that we say when we're in the middle of something is, are you freaking kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me? What is this showing up in my life? You get to do that. You get to ask that question. All right? Number 7 is we have to sit in the sorrow. Sometimes we just have sadness. We have loss. We have things that have shown up unexpectedly in our lives. And we have to sit in it until we know where we're going, what this is about. And Spirit will show you the way. But sometimes it's just sad. It's just hard. It's a loss. And we just sit there. We don't try to gloss over life. Everything that we do, the joy, the pain, the sorrow, the happiness, all of that is life. We don't need to gloss over it. That's number 7. And number 8, you got to look for the pony. You got to look for the pony. And what that means is this, and I'm going to shorten this story up. What it is there's a young boy. It's some gift-giving time. I don't know if it was his birthday or if it was Christmas. I don't know. But his parents find him out in the barn, and he's just sitting in the manure, just happy as can be, just flipping manure around. And he's just so happy. And his parents are like, what's going on out here? Have we raised a crazy child? Why are you so happy? And he said, well, I'm just thinking, with all this manure, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere. Got to be a pony in here somewhere, all right? So with all the trials and tribulations, you know there's a gift in here somewhere. That's all. That's what that means. So today, what I want to talk about, how we have the life that we're looking for. Because we co-created, because thoughts are creative, sometimes we just got to change the narrative. We have to change the story. Do you know how many stories you tell about yourself and your life? All the time. All of us are storytellers. I don't know why we aren't just writing, because all of us tell stories. We don't even know what's really going on. We'll make up a story about it. We're all creatives and we're storytellers. Principle 3 tells us that thoughts are creative. So it's powerful that we understand that everything in our lives that shows up begins with a thought. This would not be here if Ken hadn't thought to bring it. It wouldn't be here if someone hadn't thought to make the metal. All right? It has to be a thought first, everything that shows up. Repeated and consistent thoughts that you have is what your life is. Okay, not random thoughts, but repeated and consistent thoughts that you have is what your life will be. So I asked you this question. I asked myself this question one time, and I thought it was a powerful question. What's your signature story? I mean, we all have stories that we tell about little things, but what's the signature story? In other words, if someone were to ask you, who are you and what are you about? What's the story you tell them? Anybody asks me about who I am, I tell you all the time. I don't think there's anyone who knows me that doesn't know I was an army brat, that I was raised around my father and we traveled a lot. That's my signature story. I think that I love being around people a lot because of the travels. Well, okay, except my siblings also traveled a lot and they hated it. So while that was a true story, we traveled, the fact that I loved it is my story. It's not theirs. And that's a story that I accept, okay? I'm good with that story. I think it helps me to understand, know different cultures, to be comfortable around that. I love that story. But who do you say you are? What's your signature story? There are stories about me that I am now rejecting and saying, you know what? No. In fact, someone tried to add to my story this morning, and I said, no, don't add that to my story. That's not my story. I'm not telling that story, okay? I just said, no, not doing it. You get to do the same thing. There's a friend of mine that you all know, most of you know. She's come to speak. She was part of our women's conference that we had last year, Reverend Kim Andrews. And storytelling is a gift. She has a gift for storytelling. But it's not so much about telling her story. Her gift is listening to your story and helping you pull out your story. And when you do that, when someone's listening to you, you get to actually hear it yourself. As you're speaking it out loud, you hear it yourself, and you get to think, wait a minute, why is that still my story? That was a story, but why is that still something I believe? So the point that I'm making is that your signature story is powerful in your life. It does one of two things. Listening to it out loud, it keeps you where you are, or it sets you free. It keeps you where you are, or it sets you free. It keeps you where you are if you unconsciously keep repeating it without examining it. If you unconsciously keep telling yourself that you are this, that, or the other thing, it will keep you there. If you think about the story and you tell it consciously, you get to examine it. Why is that true for me now? And you get to discover things about yourself and say yay or nay consciously about your life. So my point is this. When you constantly tell your story and you listen to your narrative and the narrative of others, you get to discover what's here right now for you. What is true, what is not true, what works and what does not work. And we get to decide. That is one of the things that we believe in New Thought, that we co-create our lives. We decide what stories, what thoughts, what ideas we're going to claim and which ones we're going to dismiss and reject and deny. That is not true for me. That's what we get to do. Listen, when you're telling your story, be the hero in your own story. Why would you tell a story about yourself that doesn't work out well? You're doing the narrative. Why would you tell a story that doesn't work out well? If you keep telling a story about my father abandoned me, that may be true, but how is it serving you? How does it serve you? I'm talking about myself. It's a story that when I did this storytelling with Kim, that it came out for me. I didn't realize I felt that way. And it showed me how I came into and held on to relationships that should have long since been let go because of my feelings of abandonment and wanting to hang on to things and not letting people go out of my life who should definitely go. Not everything is about being in your life all the time. Some things are just seasons, reasons, lifetimes. And so you get to tell your story and listen to your story. Own your own story and not someone else's version of your story. Do you know how many people tell stories about you? They don't even know you, but they'll tell stories about you. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I want to talk about the unity principle number 6. Are you freaking kidding me? When you ask that question, are you freaking kidding me? It opens up the door. I actually had something happen to me this weekend that I just said, it just shocked me. I couldn't believe I was here. And I thought, how are you freaking kidding me? What is this about? Why am I here? And it caused me to examine why this occurred. Because if I don't examine it, if I don't think about my own thoughts, if you don't think about your own thoughts, your life is out of control. Then you are not co-creating your life. And there's a thing that we feel about it when we feel in control of our lives. So we get to ask those questions and change your story. So what does changing your story, changing the narrative, what could it look like? What does it look like? What does it mean? Well, let me ask you who are in a relationship or who have ever been in a relationship. Everybody says that communication is key, and I agree. But the other thing that happens and is also key is compromise. There's a lot of compromise in a relationship. One of the things that a friend of mine told me about relationships is that there's you, there's the other person in the relationship, and then there's us. There's a third entity that you're creating together. And that third entity is created by a lot of compromise that you decide to do because you want to be together, but there is compromise. Let me ask you this. Do you like your toilet paper roll hanging on the inside or the outside? Does that matter to you? One of the questions I ask a lot when we're compromising is, who is this important to? I don't give a rat's about which way the toilet paper rolls. If it matters to you, roll it the way you want. Do you care whether the toothpaste is squeezed or rolled? I don't care. If it matters to you, then you let that go. But what if it does matter? You see? So what are we compromising? And we might find that we've made compromises that we might not should have made, because now we're no longer who we are. And should that relationship finish, or even in the middle of it, we get to ask ourselves, why am I telling that story about myself? There's a core belief that I have that I stepped into this relationship and committed to it. But I didn't say, when I stepped into the relationship and committed it, that I would give myself up completely. Didn't say that. So we get to ask ourselves, yes, there's me, yes, there's them, and there's the we. But in creating the we, what have I given up? And is that too much of a sacrifice? So you understand how many questions we have to constantly ask ourselves and re-examine the narrative. The reason why I did that was because I had a story in my head about marriage. That God, and I have a relationship with Spirit. It matters to me. But that when you leave, if you commit to someone and you leave, God will be angry. That was my story. God was going to be angry until someone else questioned that story. Questioned my story and said this question to me. Asked me this. Well, if this is someone that God brought to you, because that's what I thought, why is the relationship so difficult? So I had to ask myself, did I ask God for this person? I did not. As a matter of fact, God told me before I got in it, and several other people, don't do it. Don't do it. So these are the questions that you get to ask yourself. Changing the narrative. What's the story you're telling, and why are you telling it? To rediscover who you are. To change the narrative if your life is or is not working. If you want it to be greater. What are the limiting narratives that you're telling yourself? What is it that other people are saying about yourself, about you? Principle number 4 says prayer is connection, and number 5, action is required. The action that's required is just of you, just the work for you personally. My favorite self-help guru, Brian Tracy, says this: you feel positive about yourself to the degree which you feel in control of your own life. And you feel negative about yourself to the degree that you feel out of control, or that you are controlled by some external force, person, or influence. You see? So if you're there, if you're doing anything because it's what you want, great. But if you find yourself somewhere because you told yourself a story that may or may not be aligned, this is why we continue to re-look at and rediscover the stories that we tell. And what about the stories that people tell about you? One of the stories that people tell, and I have actually, I've gone ahead and encouraged the story, is that I can't cook. That's a story I've encouraged. You know why? Because I don't want to cook. I don't want to. And there's so many great cooks in my lives, why would I do it? But the fact is, and so I believe that narrative. I told myself the narrative. I let people tell me the narrative because I was always, I wasn't volunteering to cook things. And so, oh, you can't cook? Okay, great. Yeah, I can't cook. That's not true. I actually can. I love it. I just don't want to cook every day. That's all. So I rethought the narrative because I was starting to want to do things which Pat talks about on her Honey Pat cooking show. If you can't cook with love, don't do it, because the hate can be tasted in the food. All right? If you're upset with whatever, and it can be tasted, so cook with love. And that's when I want to do it. So I changed that story. We get to change the story. We are here to experience the fullness of life. Life isn't just about, oh, it's okay, it's good. Life is about being great, about being fully present, about knowing who you are and what you want, and co-creating that life. Because we are individualized expressions of the one life, and we co-create our lives together with that one life. So it's in our control. Whatever we have, it's in our control. I can't change what you do. I can't change what anybody else does. You can't change what someone else does. All you can do, which is all you need to do, is decide who you are and change your story whenever you want. So consciously tell your story. See what's in your life. Decide what's working. Tell a different story if you need to and change the narrative. You are an individualized expression of the one. God has plans to prosper you. Okay is not prosperous. It's just okay. That's beyond. We don't accept for whatever reason. And that's a part of what we have to do when we pray. That not only do we pray for something, we have to actually then accept the gift that we're asking for. We really have to do that. God has plans to prosper you. So I'm inviting you to be the hero in your own story. You have a great story to tell. It's your life. And you and Spirit can create exactly the life you're looking for anytime you want by changing your thinking, changing your life. Namaste. Thank you. You going to do the offering prayer?
Thank you, Reverend BJ. It's what we all needed to hear. And now is the time for the offering. Wherever you are, you can text 84321, or you can do like I do. This is easier for me to go to the Harmony Spiritual Center website, and there's a contribute button, and that's how we do it. But know this, that we are all appreciative of your continued offerings to help us survive as we move from place to home church to our new place. We know that we tie to our spiritual source, and we recognize that those of us that serve here are channels of the spiritual wisdom of all that is. So let us just pray for a moment. Father, Mother God, thank you so much for all that we have. We know divine love flowing through us blesses and multiplies all that we have, all that we give, and all that we receive. And we are richly blessed, creating a greater and greater flow. So thank you so much for your offerings. We appreciate it, and this blesses you as you give, and it blesses us as we receive. So thank you. All right. And Joe is next.
It's always a pleasure to be in Pat and Glenn's house.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate, and I think all of my friends that have been here over the years really appreciate y'all's continued support of us as musicians and bringing us into your space, to your personal space. This is an unprecedented time, needless to say. My generation will almost certainly not shut up about this until we die. Now we have something on you guys. So I wanted to do a classic. I wanted to do my take of Marvin Gaye's "What's Going On." Let me tune my guitar first. I think professionals do that while they're talking. I think they just talk and they don't tell everyone they're tuning. I'll get the hang of it. Yeah, that's good enough. Mother, there's too many of you crying. Brother, there's too many of you dying. You know we've got to find a way to bring some loving here today. Father, Father, we don't need to escalate, 'cause you see war is not the answer. Only love can conquer hate. You know we've got to find a way to bring some understanding here today. Picket lines and picket signs, don't punish me with brutality. Talk to me and you can see what's going on, what's going on, what's going on, what's going on. Mother, mother, everybody thinks we're wrong, but who are they to judge us? Simply because our hair is long. You know we've got to find a way to bring some understanding here today. Picket lines and picket signs, don't punish me with brutality. Talk to me and you will see what's going on, what's going on, yeah, what's going on. Tell me what's going on, what's going on, what's going on. What's going on? What's going on? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Joe. Always, always a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much. And timely as well. What was that, like a 1960s, 70s? What song is that?
70s.
Man, it's still going on today. What's going on? It's still going on. So thank you so much. Now's a time that we're going to kind of meet and greet each other on Facebook. So if you are there, why don't you just reach out and say hello, hi to whoever's there. And thank you all so much for being here. I don't have my phone in front of me. I don't know who's watching, but thank you for watching. And please say hi to one another as well. And send out a shout out to us as well while you're on Harmony's Facebook page. We just want to make a couple of announcements. We are continuing our daily meditation Monday through Saturday at 7:30 in the morning on Zoom. So hopefully you have the newsletter and you know the link. You have the link. If you do not, please give us a message on Facebook and we will send you that link, okay? We are also on Tuesdays at 1 p.m. every Tuesday doing our lunch and love, where we're just checking in and chatting and just seeing how things are going, if you have something going on in your life right now or you don't, or whatever. We're just kind of checking in and loving on one another. So please do that. Again, it's in our newsletter, the link, but again, if you don't have it, please message me on Facebook and we'll certainly send that link to you. That's on Tuesdays. On Wednesdays, I don't believe we have anything happening on Wednesdays that I can recall. On Thursdays, we don't have anything going on. Oh, sorry, Wednesdays, we have Honey Pat every second and fourth Wednesday at 6 o'clock. So we just had it last Wednesday. I hope you watched. She made a great stew. Fantastic. It was angel singing or something of this nature. Angel Sing Stew, and my, oh my, it was great. So you don't want to miss that, as well as Food for the Soul. So definitely join us on our Facebook page at 6 o'clock on every second and fourth Wednesday to get some great recipes from Honey Pat, economical, great tasting, and food for the soul as well. We have our Thursday classes on hiatus right now. So we will let you know when we get back into our new space. Probably we'll do something different there. And we will be dedicating, just a little heads up, we will be dedicating our new space on the 25th, which is a Sunday of October. So please look for the invitations and what's going to be happening there. In the meantime, thank you all so much. Anybody have any other announcements? Anything else you want to share with us? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yay.
PJ.
Bye, bye, bye.
Do I need to talk into the mic?
Yeah.
And here we are. So this is the time that we have our celebrations. If you have a celebration out there in Facebook land, put your celebration on the Facebook post that accompanies this home church so that we can all know. And we want to celebrate some birthdays for September. We have Allison Moreland, Barb Sekma,
Shell Tischler.
Thank you, Gigi Cervantes, and Rosemarie Desomes. And so happy birthday, you guys out there, and anybody that we don't know.
Happy birthday, September babies.
And celebration time for whatever.
Yeah.
I'm just celebrating having all these wonderful folks here in my own house, and then what you all don't get to share is I'm going to feed them. Too bad, so sad. So let us have our closing prayer. Father, Mother God, we are so grateful that for modern technology that we are able to, through the airwaves, be in communion with one another, that we can be one with each other, because this is just an outward expression of what is already in existence, that this has been manifested even though it's always been this way. So we are grateful. We're grateful for this group of people, for our Harmony Spiritual Center family, that we are still one with each other. We love you. Thank you, God, and so it is.
And
Amen.
so it is. All right. Thank you, Pat. We also do want to say thank you to our AV team, to Aaron Haskin and to Jim Kovalt. And we want to thank Ken so much for being here. Thank you, Ken. Your lovely, great music. And thank you so much, Joe James, once again, for being here. We really appreciate you and love you so much. So join us, please, for our final song for the day, Love is My Decision.
Love is my decision. It's up to me to give her my heart. Love is my decision. No one else can tell me to start. Once I decide to change my mind, God will show me how. Love is my decision, right here and now. My decision.